Okay, hello world history folks. Once again, situation with my baby, with our baby. So he's having a little bit of surgery today, so I'm not here, but I will be back next time. So you finished looking at Alexander the Great, who built that massive empire and spread Greek culture, and that era was called the Hellenistic era because the Hellenes were the Greeks, and so he brought the Greek culture and language with him, and it mixed in with all these cultures to the east. But then his empire eventually fell apart, and the next place we're going is Rome, and Rome steps into the vacuum left by the Greeks, and they become the dominant force in the Mediterranean after the Greeks. First thing that we're going to do is look at geography of Rome. Make sure you're making comparisons to the Greeks after we go through this together. So you're going to fill out your note sheet as you listen. So it's just going to be the first part. We're going to just go through a small part of the note outline, and then you're going to work on a map. And there aren't a whole lot of items to identify on it, 10 of them. And then there's some questions on the back side to keep everything on schedule. You're going to finish that sheet in class. So I'm going to repeat that. You're going to finish that sheet in class after you get done watching this, and you're going to turn that in at the end of class. So stay on target for what you're supposed to do today, and use your notes as well as the map on that worksheet to answer the questions that are on the back side of it. Okay. So let's start talking about the geography of Rome. And like I just said, after Alexander the Great's empire falls apart, um, that leaves an opening for the Romans. So if you look down here on the map, you can see here's Greece over here. There's the peninsula, mainland Greece. You got the islands, you got Crete. And then over to the east, so this is the Ionian Sea that separates Greece and the Italian peninsula. Here you can see where the city of Rome is. Now, if we go back in time to ancient times, there was no such thing as Italy. We call it the Italian peninsula, but you had all these different city states like Rome that were their own independent entities. So there wasn't one unified power on the peninsula. Okay, so if you remember, Alexander the Great, the Macedonian from up here, defeated the Persians, and then he expanded his empire all the way to the east, all the way to India, and then down to Egypt. So he built that massive empire. It eventually falls apart. He dies at age 32, and without him around, it divides and eventually falls. So the Romans step in, and they built a really large empire, not quite as large as Alexander the Great's, but a very large one. And it was filled with many different cultures, including Greek culture. And among other things, we're going to talk about all the ways that the ancient Romans have influenced us, Western civilization, just like the Greeks. So we're going to combine what we've learned about the Greeks and the Romans together to talk about how have those two civilizations from the past influenced Western civilization, influenced us. One of the big ones, and this will come towards the end when we're talking about Rome, is the rise of Christianity. So one of the great monotheistic religions. Judaism was already around at that point. Okay, so Judaism is older than Christianity. Later on, after Judaism and Christianity, then Islam rises too, and those are the three Abrahamic religions. Okay, the name of Rome traces back to a myth, and the myth told a story about Romulus and Remus, who were twins, twin brothers. Supposedly, they were abandoned on the Tiber River on the Italian peninsula and raised by a wolf. Eventually, those boys built a city inside the 7 hills that surrounded the Tiber River. And one of the brothers, Romulus, supposedly, according to this myth, killed his twin brother, Remus. And that city that Romulus built was named after himself. So Rome, you can see if you look at his name and then compare it to the name of the city, Rome, it's pretty obvious what the connection is. Specifics about the geography of Rome. As I mentioned, there are 7 hills around the Tiber River at this location. That is where the city of Rome rests. And again, it's on the Italian peninsula. To the east of it, not too far away, the Adriatic Sea. Think about proximity, closeness to the sea. Think about the Greeks and how many of their city-states were close to the sea, and what did that mean for the economy and for trade for the Greeks, and now think about it for Rome on the Italian peninsula. Very important point. If you look at the entire Mediterranean Sea, the Italian peninsula where Rome is located is basically the midway point along the Mediterranean. With that, think about how that could affect trade as well. The Italian peninsula, even warmer than Greece. So remember, Greece was kind of a moderate climate. Same kind of thing with Rome, even a little bit warmer than that. So it encouraged outdoor activities just like with the Greeks. Now, make a connection to government and life in a city. What does that tell us about what might have likely been true about the government that the Romans embraced? Is there a comparison to the Greeks if the climate was such that you could be outside a lot? Think about that. The Romans also had some geographical gifts to the north, the far north. So if you go all the way up the Italian peninsula, you have a massive mountain range called the Alps. That provided a good natural barrier. Below them was the Po River that ran west to east. That also provided a nice barrier for the Romans. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. So I kept it nice and short. So you're going to work on that sheet. You're going to turn that in at the end of class today. So stay focused on that. And next time we'll pick it up with the early republic. So we'll get more into the history and we'll review geography and talk about a few things that you answer on your sheet. So I will see you on Wednesday. Take care.